Hey everyone, it's Jenna Melanson from Canadian Beats Media. Today I'm joined by Aleks from the Ontario-based band Excuse Me for our latest segment of Zoomies. Welcome, Aleks.
Thank you for having me. It's
It's my
good to
pleasure.
zoom on over here.
So first off, care to introduce Excuse Me to our listeners?
For sure. Yeah, okay. So Excuse Me is a five-piece band. We met all through one degree or another, the music program at the University of Guelph, and got our newest member, Joey, um, on board a couple of years in. And we've been playing shows for 6 years. And we basically all come from completely different backgrounds of music, but like try to fuse them together. So the result is like indie rock, little pop rock, kind of basically just going where the songs take us. So we're based in Guelph, Ontario, and that's just like a general description of us.
Okay. So you've unveiled your album, The Light. Care to tell us about the creative process behind the release?
For sure. Um, it was a long journey. The creative process took many forms. Some of these songs were started. We started writing them in like 2018. In some cases. So it's kind of been like a quilt of different styles of recording. A lot of the basic demos were started in the most cramped bedroom you could imagine. Um, and then we all decided to move in together into a house in Guelph, or Dylan, Hayden, Adam, and I in Guelph. And then COVID happened. So it's kind of a blessing and a curse. We had time to ourselves, so we were able to do a lot of songwriting workshops, but we weren't able to rehearse as a full band, and that was a really tough period. So there was a lot of like basement style recordings, and then when things like really started when the rubber started to hit the road, we went to Hal's studio in Oakville, and we worked with Steve Luxon, who's a great engineer, and he um, helped us engineer the drums and bass for most of the album, basically the whole album, and a little bit of guitar here and there. And that was our bed track. So we were able to kind of record guitars at our place in Guelph, and vocals at Howl. The owner Dave gave us access to record vocals. So it's kind of like Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants, like, but Brotherhood of the Traveling Mics. Like, it was like we're just taking microphones from one spot to the other spot, and then taking all these inspirations and putting them into one song. And then I think like one standout story in terms of recording was the final song in the album. It's called The Light. We wanted it to feel very intimate, and so we recorded it in our living room in one take without a metronome, just like eight mics set up in different spots. And I'm really happy with how that turned out. It's yeah, it's a very intimate, like you're sitting in the room with us. And it
Mhm.
turns out that it's in the room where we started writing that song. So it feels like a really full circle moment. Um,
Definitely. So your single, Take Your Time, explores themes of acceptance and navigating through life.
yeah.
What inspired the content of this track and the musical direction?
Huh. Yeah, it kind of runs the gamut. Like I was talking the other day, like the first verse, I kind of pictured it taking place in a party setting. So there's a lot of noise going on, and you see someone that catches your eye and that you're interested in, and you sit down and start having a conversation with them, like amidst all of this
Mhm.
craziness. And there's this genuine like connection there. And I wanted the lyrics to feel like a kind of back and forth conversation
Mhm.
throughout the song. So it's like you said, I said, you said, I said. Um, and then it kind of feels like when you're having like when you realize that you have a connection with someone, the conversations can tend to get very big picture, like very fast. And so
Mhm.
like the next verse is just talking about, the current state of affairs of, I would say like rock music, and how it feels like, it's always being trumpeted that it's like a dying breed of music, and that like, like rock is dead and everything like that.
Mhm.
And just thinking like one of the lyrics are like, who's gonna save us now? Who's gonna work the console? Like who's who's gonna have the skills to use all this old equipment that, is being made obsolete by iPhones and stuff.
Yeah.
So it it kind of it goes all over the place, but the main message of the song, and what's hammered home in the chorus is, the lyrics are, I would wait all my life to call you mine. As it is, I'll get by, so take your
Mhm.
time. It's kind of like in the grand story of the album, it's the point in where the protagonist kind of realizes that they are okay with where they're at in their life. They want something, they want to be with someone, they want that connection, but
Mhm.
they realize that it's not something that they need to like force. As it is, I'll get
Mhm.
by. So it's this acceptance that like, okay, I've gone on this big journey. I'm okay with where I'm at right now. And if somewhere down the line, you want to hop along for the journey, then, take your time. But like, I'm here. It's kind of just this
Okay.
final moment of acceptance in the story arc of the album.
The single is mastered by Noah. Is it Noah Mintz?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. And boasts a powerful sonic quality. Can you discuss the importance of production and mastering to shape the overall sound of the single and the album?
For sure. Yeah, like it plays a huge role. We've been working with Noah since our first project. He's a titan of the industry. Like anyone who
Mm.
does music in Canada has likely at a bigger level, not that we're at a bigger level, but has gone through him at some point. He's just got a fantastic ear, and it's really a joy watching him work. He'll take about, one listen through to like really grasp the idea of the song, and then he'll run with it. He doesn't second guess himself in it. And he's actually provided like a lot of good advice for me as a mix engineer. So I'd say like I'm biased because, I do mixing, and I think that it has a huge impact on how the song is received. You can change the message by putting certain things further forward than others. So, um, I actually was able to engineer and mix this song, and then we sent it to Noah, and it's the longest I've ever spent on a mix, admittedly. It took a lot to get right. There was a lot of elements, and it's basically trying to fit all these things into a package without it being overwhelming. And I went through a ton of revisions, and I just wanted like the core message to get across. And ultimately, it ended up just having, I think the biggest impact that happened in the mixing process was having a lot of voices reinforcing the chorus, and then certain harmonies in the verses. So it feels like this hook, this mantra of like, I would wait to call you mine. As it is, I'll get by. Like that's what's going to stick in your head because you're
Mhm.
hearing 50 people yelling it at you. It's like, this is the message of the song. So mixing that in a way that feels like big and expansive, and like
Mhm.
you're kind of being surrounded by this message, that that's something that took a lot of time. And then sending it to a mastering engineer like Noah is just a great experience because he'll pick up on that, and he'll be like, okay, like I'm gonna reinforce this song, and kind of amplify the message. And that's what a good mastering engineer does. And he's a
Mhm.
great master engineer. Yeah.
With the light marking your sophomore effort, how do you feel the band has evolved musically and creatively since the debut release?
Wow. Yeah. we've gone through a lot of changes sonically, but our core belief system has kind of always been the same, and we kind of realized it at an early point where our kind of ethos is that the song knows what it wants to be, and a lot of effort and energy can be wasted trying to make a song something that fits into a package, and it's just like, hey, this is our sound, like this is what we do. And we've always kind of taken the opposite approach and just been like, okay, like here's this idea of something that I've been writing, like what do you think about it? It's like, oh, this is great, like it sounds like this. And we kind of it resulted in an album that explores a ton of different pathways and a ton of different genres. Like you could define the album as like a folk album at points, like kind of psychedelic rock at points, commercial, almost commercial pop, like with like rock elements.
Mhm.
It really, it depends on the song, and so we kind of want to make a dynamic product that when you listen to it, it's taking you on a journey. You're not just
Mhm.
getting like, this is our sound for the whole time. It's like it's within the context of the album where you go like, okay, I can see that like this was an excuse me project, but not because of like one particular thing. And I think that that's something that we've been able to refine over time, and it's taken us going in a bunch of different directions to like be more comfortable with that. And I'd say, in the early days, there were some times where we'd go like way left field and, put out a release that's like completely different than everything that came before that. I think we've kind of like matured in the fact that, we're still taking things in different directions, but it's fitting more into a narrative of like, this is our sound.
Mhm.
So, we're not as young as we used to be. Like we don't like take as crazy risks as we used to, but we're still having fun with like every
Mhm.
song and kind of just being excited to see where the song takes us. So that's how I'd say we've evolved as a band.
The band's been praised for its energetic live performances and chemistry on stage. How do you approach translating the energy of the album onto the live setting?
Hmm. Yeah, that's a good question. Um, I think especially on this album, that's made easier because it has such a strong core message. Like we spent a lot of time trying to like develop a narrative of the album. It starts off in a very kind of chaotic place where the the main character will say kind of is questioning his life and looking at the world around him and being like, wow, like what are we doing? Like I'm not satisfied with where I am, and decides to sell his possessions, buy a Pontiac Trans Am, and drive across the country to start a new life. And I feel like having something like that in mind when you're like performing these songs live, like you're really just telling stories.
Mhm.
You're really just telling stories and trying to get people on board with the message that you're getting across. So it helps when you've spent time fleshing out like this is like the message that we're trying to get across with this album. So you're kind of just like tapping into that and sending that out to the crowd. Like be like, okay, like when I'm talking about someone feeling uncertainty, like as much as I can say like, yeah, no, that's just a character in a song, like it's coming from somewhere, right? Like I'm relating to it. Like maybe I've experienced something in my life that um yeah, inspired the lyrics around that
Mhm.
song. So like I'm able to kind of like tap into that time in my life, and I always try to channel that, through the music. And I think it's a way to connect with people because you're not detached from the music. You're in the
Mhm.
moment, fully feeling everything. And I think it allows other people to really feel what's going on. So yeah, and I think we all do that as a band. Like I think we all kind of get into our own world
Mhm.
like, okay, yeah, this is the song, and like we're looking at each other and like we're reinforcing, and I think that allows us to project
Mhm.
in a way that, you know, we get all that energy back, and it's a good time. So
Awesome.
yeah, I guess we should just keep writing concept albums. I think it makes our lives
Yeah,
easier
for sure.
in some ways. Some ways. Yeah,
So the next 5 questions are just for fun.
sure.
If
Actually, do
excuse
you mind
me,
if I just like remembered one thing when you were asking. I want to just kind of tack something onto a previous question that you asked. And that was in terms of like how does like engineering and mixing and mastering affect the output of a song, or the output of a of an album. I
Mhm.
think we totally lucked out in the people that we worked with on this project. Like I mentioned Steve Luxton earlier as an engineer, and he just had the ability to hear where we were going and kind of create a gear list to create that vibe and really capture it. And so it's kind of like I don't know if you've heard like the medium is the message, like
Mhm.
how things are given to you has a big impact on like how you're going to receive the information that's being sent. So having someone who has a knowledge of like, okay, like these microphones and this setup is going to make the drums sound like kind of more in line with this genre, and it'll fit, you know, the message that you're trying to get across. So I think just like to any artists, it's, you know, there's a lot that you can do on your own, but finding a team that, you know, has a bit of experience and is also invested in the project, uh, that'll help the engineering side, that'll help the mixing side, that'll help the mastering side, and you'll get a much better product at the end of that. But
Definitely.
that's my spiel. Thank you for letting me tack that on.
No problem. If excuse me could have a signature scent, what would it smell like?
Probably terrible. Oh man. It's 5 dudes. No, let me actually give you a serious answer. If we could have a signature scent, what would it smell like? Oh, that's crazy. Um, okay, it would smell like there's some pine trees in Guelph. Oh, I don't know if I'm gonna. It would smell like takeout. It would smell like Osmos, a little bit of a shawarma. We always have shawarma before shows. Um, and uh, I guess maybe stale Bud Lights, but there'd also be like a little breath of fresh air, because you know there's good creativity that comes from the 5 of us working together. So it'd be a very niche market for this candle, but it would have hints. Let's just say it would have hints of a lot of different things, and somehow by some crazy coincidence they would work together because I think
Okay.
that that's this band as a whole. It somehow manages to work, even though we're 5 completely different people.
Great. If you were able to work with one fellow Canadian band or artist who you haven't already, who would you choose?
See, again, like if we had any other member sitting here, they'd each have a different
Yeah.
answer. But I'm gonna give you my answer. Half Moon Run is just such a continued inspiration for
Mhm.
me. I saw them recently, and I think they're like the one of the most probably the most talented like Canadian live act right now, and they haven't put out a bad album.
Mhm.
They're always experimenting, and I think that they follow a similar ethos of like the song will take you in different directions. Like if you listen to their albums, often the last track is like more electronic and kind of like uh, a left turn from everything else on the album, but it manages to work because it's them doing it, and I
Yeah,
think they're just incredible songwriters.
definitely.
Yeah.
If you could bring back any canceled TV show, which would you resurrect?
Oh, that's another. Um, I'll do like a kind of like a trick answer because it's not canceled, but they switched the main actor, or they're gonna be switching the main actor.
Okay.
The Witcher on Netflix, so good.
Okay.
Henry
Mm-hmm.
Henry Cavill like is Geralt, and I think through some contractual bogusness, he's being replaced by one of the what's the one of the Hemsworth brothers,
Okay.
Liam Hemsworth, who's great, but it's just kind of one of those things like how am I gonna get on board with this, like with a
Yeah.
completely different lead character? So I'd be like, bring back Geralt, bring back Henry Cavill,
Yeah.
and yeah, The Witcher would be perfection.
Okay. What's your favorite cover song to perform?
Oh, interesting. So we've done a bunch in our time. I think my favorite though is Little Black Submarines by the Black Keys. I just like really dynamic songs, and that song kind of starts in a very soft, kind of brooding way. It invites you in, and then just the guitar punches through, and you're like in a completely different zone for the rest of it. Um, and so it's a blast. It gets the people going. So I'd say that would be my answer. Yeah.
Okay. And last but not least, what's your
Mhm.
go-to warm drink on a cold day?
Recently, honestly, hot apple cider. Hot apple cider
Hmm.
slaps, and it's nostalgic for me. Like my grandma is definitely a peddler of her apple cider, and it's so good. She put like a cinnamon stick in it. Like, come on.
Mm, definitely.
Yeah, that's what I'd say.
Okay.
Um,
So that's it for Zoomies. Thanks for joining me and congratulations on the new album.
Thank you so much. Real quick, I realized I didn't mention my bandmates' names at the start.
Okay.
So we've got Adam Kurt on guitar and bass on this album. We've got Joe Seymour on drums. We've got Hayden Jenkins on guitar, and we've got Dylan Creed on bass and guitar. And my name is Aleks Liskauskas, and I did keys and vocals on this album. So yeah, there you go. I'm kind of scatterbrained, so I'm tacking on some stuff, but it's been really great to be on board, and thank you for the great questions. Those were thinkers. Yeah.
That's the goal.